They say it's not what you say, but how you say it. And I'd argue that both word choice and delivery play an equally important role. Nowhere is this more evident than in the case of Rachel Zegler and her portrayal of Disney's Snow White, which recently premiered to a less than enthusiastic response. From production setbacks to casting controversies, Snow White has been plagued by one issue after another, leading to multiple delays as Disney scrambled to address creative inconsistencies and manage media firestorms. Yet when you break it all down, the root of the film's problems can be traced back to one now infamous interview with the movie's lead, Rachel Zegler. Welcome to the Femininity Audit. On this channel, we examine how women in pop culture portray themselves, how they think, what they say, and how they act, so we can take what's valuable and leave behind what isn't. A movie lives or dies based on its lead, and as the leading lady in this case, it's your job to sell the film and spark excitement. You can't afford to alienate the audience right from the start, and you certainly shouldn't be so unpredictable that the movie's producer has to step in and lecture you on exercising some restraint. Rachel had one job, and she failed miserably, and now the movie is suffering because of it. But is it really that hard to promote a movie? It made me wonder how other actresses have handled the role of Snow White in various adaptations. To explore this, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at 3 previous Snow Whites: Lily Collins from Mirror Mirror, Kristen Stewart from Snow White and the Huntsman, and Jennifer Goodwin from the TV series Once Upon a Time, comparing how they spoke about the beloved character to Rachel's interview. After all, this isn't the first time a Snow White adaptation has veered away from the original. In Mirror Mirror, Lily Collins reimagined Snow White as a more action-oriented and independent princess while maintaining the character's signature femininity, charm, and sweetness. Her portrayal injected a fresh, quirky energy without straying too far from the classic essence of Snow White. Kristen Stewart's Snow White and the Huntsman took a drastically different approach, transforming the character into a warrior princess. This departure from the traditionally delicate portrayals emphasized resilience, strength, and maturity, aligning with the film's darker tone. Jennifer Goodwin's Snow White in Once Upon a Time balanced fairy tale innocence with real-world complexity. Her portrayal spanned alternate timelines, presenting Snow White as a capable leader, a mother, and a warrior, offering a more modern and multifaceted take on the character. Reimagining such an iconic character inevitably sparks debate, but what stands out most is how each actress chose to speak about these changes. Let's take a closer look.
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Well, I think everybody knows that she's good. I think everybody knows that her basic characteristic is that she's very compassionate and that she cares about people and sort of that she's like ultimately selfless. And she's got this connection to the earth and to the animals. I think probably the first thing I think when I think Snow White is the deer and the bunny and the birds all at the same time sort of surrounding her.
What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937.
I play Snow White, and she has been recreated in a modern time and place.
I mean, we modernized her in many ways because we wanted to make her, relatable. And unfortunately, as obsessed as I am with all of those Grimm's/Disney princesses, I do think that, women have just evolved just socially. Yeah.
We're not intentionally rebelliously turning it on its head. I just don't think that right now it's as effective a character for women because times have changed. I mean, like back in the day, it was very valued and really cool and perfectly fine at that time to be the best mother that you can be, to, clean house better than anyone. It was just that, we do more than that now.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's
modernized in a way where in this story the princess almost saves the prince at the end instead of the prince saving the princess. So in that sense it's a fun way to play it.
Yes, I definitely liked the fact that we still were doing Snow White though. It wasn't this
we weren't capitalizing on something that everyone was going to have a connection to. I've read a lot of scripts recently that the strong female lead is actually just sort of acting like a guy.
It wasn't like, ooh, let's turn Snow White into this like crazy badass. It so had like integrity and heart, like you say. It wasn't just like ball busting action, and I thought it was cool to do that.
And you must love that she's pretty badass too in the flashbacks.
Oh yeah, wielding a sword. I mean, I was on page what, like 10, and she pulls out the sword, and I was like, I'll take it. I had said that before. Yeah.
The enchantment of Snow White, all of that is, it's better than I've ever imagined Snow White. The whole movie's about balance. The whole movie's about knowing that like pure good and pure evil, just they don't, you know, it doesn't exist. Those lines are blurred.
Is true to all of the things that you associate with Snow White when you just hear the name. You know, she's very compassionate and she's got this connection to the earth and to animals, and we've got all of that. It's just that we put her in a situation where it's really difficult to maintain those qualities. We test her. We kind of she lives in a very dangerous world, and I think that that's not what we're used to necessarily.
The cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. And so
It's not that we were aiming to replicate the performances of others, or you know, we weren't trying to bring the Disney animated feature to life or something. I feel that we justify all of those stories. You know, you can say like, oh, I can see how Disney's Snow White is kind of loosely based on the real Snow White, which we hope everyone feels this is the real Snow White. I felt very free to be creative.
when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader. And she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
I loved Snow White's steady nature. I loved that it wasn't about being strong. It wasn't about being excited about going to kill the queen. It was really about finding it in her to be able to. Mm-hmm. And you never see that in an action movie. It's always just like, yeah, kill!
I wasn't as much nervous of creating a princess that everyone thought was the perfect one. It was more creating a young girl that people could relate to. We really wanted to make her less of a caricature of a fairy tale princess and more of a real girl in these situations.
Make sure that Snow White felt, you know, like a real girl and not somebody who was just endowed with like superhuman selflessness, because that's hard to, you're not going to feel bad for anyone like that. It's like they're not human.
Approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
And in the end, she turns into a young woman who has fallen in love in the process of winning her kingdom back. And she turns into a fighter, which is in some ways different than the original fairy tale.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But
when we started doing this, I completely realized why they hire people like Chris Hemsworth to be these action stars, because it's hard. Like, these big, strong, burly dudes do it for a reason. To have the prince not be a priss and have the huntsman not just be like a big, rough, stupid, you know, they really play like very rich people. They're such good actors. I would actually think of us more as like a team.
Working with Prince Charming was really a joy. Josh Dallas really brings something so dynamic to the role.
You found me.
They will continue to face obstacles. There will continue to be conflicts, but I believe in the power of their teamwork.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
I did promise myself, though, I would never complain about wearing clothes again when you have to be doing these crazy action sequences and corsets.
Costumes were so heavy and so voluminous, they just weren't practical enough to walk around the set.
The stuff, and how heavy was it?
It wasn't as heavy as it was rigid. I think the guys had it worse. I had a suit that really I could move much better than the boys, but hard, like very hard.
Took a pause and realized what I was auditioning for, and then it became like I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
My favorite fairy tale was always Snow White. So when I got that call, I really did flip my lid.
Usually do people ever tell you you look like Snow White?
Right.
Which is an incredible compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean because they're saying I look like me, but because I'm like, I love the association clearly with, I mean, I'm like a Disney-phile, so that's like my...
It's so...
The biggest part of Snow White that intrigued me to the story, and that I've always grown up loving, is I think every little girl has a little bit of snow in them. I think that that wide-eyed, innocent, just wanting to explore and the unknown as well as finding yourself. That's a big part of growing up in general.
It was a big deal, and then they said what it was, Snow White, and I was like, really?
Like my journey paralleled with Snow's during filming. I walked into the situation unsure, you know, what was going to happen, and I ended up becoming a fighter physically and also emotionally, trying new things, opening myself up to spontaneity, and I learned a lot about myself as Lily as well as Snow learning about herself. If playing Snow helped me achieve that at the end of the film after 4 months, because every little girl and every woman and every grandmother has a little bit of snow in them, I think that they also can leave feeling a little bit more excited and kind of open to life.
I couldn't step on a bug, not that I still can, but especially while I was shooting. I was absolutely affected by her. Like, God, I want to be like that. She's amazing.
Personally and for other people, like even if nobody saw Snow White, the experience of it has given me so much, and I think I want to do that forever. I want to make movies. I'm like obsessed.
Notice how each leading lady conveyed a similar message in her own way. Yet, unlike Rachel Zegler, Lily, Kristen, and Jennifer managed to communicate their thoughts without dismissing or talking down to the original story of Snow White. As a result, they were able to present any criticisms or creative changes not as improvements over the original, but as new, fresh, and exciting takes on a Disney classic. They managed a level of professionalism and respect for both the original and their leading men, something Rachel clearly struggled with. I believe this is a major reason why the film is underperforming. Rachel came off as condescending, ungrateful, and needlessly snarky, turning off potential moviegoers before they even had a chance to see the film and make up their own minds. To be fair to Rachel, she didn't say anything particularly surprising. Disney has repeatedly shown that it doesn't prioritize honoring its intellectual property, instead continuing to make changes to the classics that no one asked for. While Rachel's words and demeanor were off-putting, one could argue that her behavior is just a reflection of Disney's own approach. It's honestly a shame because Rachel is talented. She can sing, she can act, and her performance in the movie has generally been well received. However, her outspoken nature and inability to stay level-headed may continue to negatively impact her career if she doesn't work on it. Ultimately, people need to trust your professionalism in order to hire you, and audiences need to like you to continue supporting your films. If there's anything to take away from this, it's that when you speak up, you need to read the room and show enough respect for yourself and others to choose your words carefully. We've all had moments when we said the wrong thing or failed to watch our tone and ended up offending someone. It happens, and no one is perfect. But what really matters is our ability to recognize our mistakes and make amends. To her credit, Rachel did attempt to apologize, but the lack of sincerity in her words still comes through, revealing her true feelings, that she sees herself as a victim being unfairly targeted.
To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
It turns out the old adage still holds true. Silence is golden, and sometimes the wisest thing to do is say nothing at all.